you look at academic books on the behaviour of teams, people who like each other, who get on well, who complement each other, are good. So if you're a boss and you're recruiting, you shouldn't recruit people who are the same as you are. That's the thing. But if you get on well and like, it's very good. So bureaucracy can get in the way. I think for banks now, on the issue I'm focusing on, it is very difficult to deregulate. If you look, since the banking crisis, labor manipulation is really terrible for banks to be doing this sort of stuff. Money laundering is sad and terrible because HSBC and Standard Chartered had a good crisis, it didn't go bust, and then they've done all these terrible things. And this, you may not follow the story, but this RW optimization, many banks have done. It was very clear 18 months ago. The European Central Bank told banks they must increase their capital ratio, and they also have increased their capital ratio, but nobody raised any capital. They optimized their assets to get there. So we have had this 35 pages of Basel I, hundreds of pages, thousands of pages now. It's really very hard. It does worry me about the West versus India and China, whether we have such a burden of regulation that the whole economy never ever got. It is worrying. In banking, I don't think you can trust the bankers. Although as I said, still be happy for a job, yes, I'm wrong. If I had a choice, I'd go to a bank and an insurance company because it's very interesting. But given their track record in causing this terrible, I mean, we're still suffering from the shock of the banking crisis leading to the Eurozone crisis and everything else. Our children will look back and say, how did that ever happen? Bankers were partly responsible, discussed tomorrow, are much responsible, so you can't trust them. So I don't think you can deregulate unless you have these professional standards. If you said you would do your own models, it would just cheat. I think it's only possible to deregulate if you have the three kinds of professionalism of training, code, and sanctions. I don't think otherwise it's very difficult. Everything we see, you get more and more regulation. It completely blocks up the whole thing. And it's very difficult to undo the regulation.
Is there any other question for the audience? Yes,
Yeah.
please. Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Okay.
How are you? Yeah.
So my name is Marcin and I'm from Poland. I'm a political scientist, I'm not economist. I'm a PhD student and I'm the separate student of Capitalism Institute. So I would like to ask about where are we today? Namely because you talk in your very interesting speech about your experience for the last 40 years in banking and insurance system, right? So nevertheless, since 2008, bankers are, well, fine. They are still doing gambling, there are bailouts, So I would like to ask you, because I understand your point about the regulation, that even if we prepare, I don't know, hundreds of pages of regulation, nobody will first understand, nobody will implement, nobody will accept this. So how states should react? Maybe the states should at first punish one bank, because another way there is no punish. Bankers, they are doing gambling, like Joseph Stiglitz said. They are not doing gambling on horses. They are not doing gambling on financial markets, right? So this is very Leninist question, namely because it was very often a repeated question during realistic times, what to do, right? So what we should to do in today's world of banking system.
I agree with you. I'm here because of my friend Philip. Has Philip been here?
Yes, Philip Booth was here.
Philip Booth is a very good friend whom I've known for 25 years. He's a very nice guy. Although he's younger than me, he's a colleague at CAS. So we have a very good relationship to work together, and we always tease each other because he's a very committed Catholic, whereas I come from the austere Presbyterian Church of Scotland. So we talk about these things a lot. It's good fun. But even though Philip is a really good person and a very committed Catholic in his personal life, he says, on the whole, people are not just good. That there is a motive to be good. Now, it could be our parents would hit us or punish us. Or it could be, in Christianity, you go to heaven or hell. That's quite simple. You get reward or you get punishment. And I agree with Philip, that although you like to think many of us are just good and we help an old lady cross the road, we pick up something dropped in the snow. When I was at Phillips and Drew, I behaved well, because if I behaved well, I became a partner and got on in life. So there is a kind of, you want to think you were just good, but the motive does help. So I think, like children with their parents, like in religion, like in other walks of life, the black and white difference of punishment and personal punishment of you, not in your company. You did this. Now, to do that, you need a fair process. You can't have victimization of individuals. But there is a point that you make, and often the law, there was a case in the UK just now, you may have read even here, of an MP who was speeding. Not a big problem. Everyone does it. But he agreed with his wife that he would say his wife did it. So this was lying. This wasn't speeding now, this was lying. So they both got 8 months in jail, because although the speeding was no big deal, the court made a case of not telling the truth, and they got punished. So my kind of point coming here was that you cannot go on a bank with more and more rules. You need to move away from them, but have professionalism and trust bankers. But I think an equally good approach would be, as we tried to do with Cyprus, to pick you may as well pick an RPS where I was. It's terrible. And it's government owned anyway, 82% owned. So you should break it up, because much of the problem is the big bank mindset. And my colleagues at RBS in the management team were doing 3 million a year, 4 million a year, much more than when I left in 2008. They just got more and more and more, because they're too big to fail now. So I don't know who you pick on. Who would you pick on? You're going to pick in a bank, to give an example.
The AG for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because they say these things are children and grandchildren.
I was thrilled when Alan Greenspan said, honestly, what is the reason why Lehman Brothers collapsed, right? Because he was working for another company for many years, and he was enemy company for him for many years, right? So if Alan Greenspan made the decision that Lehman Brothers should collapse for a very simple reason, because my personal identity showing that I hate these boys, so this is, brain damage, right? So
yeah.
the system is almost, like the house of cards.
Yeah. I do think that the running point is a real point that, as I said from my colleagues, anyone who was asked to leave got rewarded for leaving. They were better off than they had been if they stayed. They didn't ever need to work again. And that's the case in many, many banks worldwide, in America, more so. The people who got huge amounts of money to go and shut up. So I think, now you know why people are scared, because of the pack of cards of Lehman, so they're scared to bring it down. But they have had 5 years of thinking about it. Most Western economies are stuck in this rut that may go on for years. They are going to suffer from severe social unrest and discontent. Whichever government, it doesn't matter, is going to suffer. We saw this in Japan. I was in Japan in 85, 87. I was there for 2 years at the bubble and it bust. But Japan is a long-suffering economy. People don't really protest. They kind of have a little joke, but nothing very serious. They just go with the consensus in most Asian countries. I think the underlying popular discontent of 10 or 20 years of no growth, that's why I say it's our children and grandchildren who are suffering. So I think that picking on people is important, and I would prefer to pick in the individuals. For my boss, very good one. Why is he not in jail? The reason is because there was no rule against what he did. There was no actual rule to say, but gosh, my mother, she would have said, I don't care, it was wrong. And if in the UK, if the police can stop you in your car, they can normally find that tires aren't okay or something. If they wanted to put Fred Gubin in jail, you could have found plenty of reasons. So I don't think we need to be in a witch hunt, but I agree, and that's where one element of the personal thing, I agree because I did feel this so strongly, and the reason for leaving our business was because actually you might be struck off. Though I felt the personal burden, these people kind of hide under this corporate thing. So the worst thing that happened was our business broken up. Who cares? There can be 6 chief executives then. Is there anyone else? What would you do? I mean, this is a fundamental point that people will talk about 10 years. What, between the options you've got of moving a bit from tick box compliance, filling in forms, to more judgment, and establishing professionalism, trust people, and punishing banks or individuals, what would somebody else think about that? I think right, you just give an opinion.
Actually, if I may add something to your presentation, I would add an enormous amount of moral hazard, but not with bankers, but with loan takers as well. Basically, this subprime mortgage crisis was initiated, according to my knowledge, in the US subprime housing market, and actually it spread along the country, this subprime lending to the families and to the individuals who were never ever able to pay back those loans. And this started to build up this enormous amount of risk, so much that it became systemic. From the point, actually, once these credit default swaps were structured based on that, because bankers obviously realized that too much risk is in the system at that point, and then this kind of a demand for the security, for the insurance of those contracts was initiated with bankers. They kind of then the investment bankers offered, of course, this was opportunity to offer a new structured product and to spread the risk on financial markets. And but as soon as the collateralized credit default swaps and collateralized debt obligations entered the secondary market, the bubble bursted. As long as they were on the primary market, held with initial purchasers and initial issuers, it was fine. The risk was spread along the market in a fair manner. But from the moment those papers entered the secondary market and became fully tradable, this enormous amount of risk started to build up.
So we'll talk about them tomorrow, and lots of people were involved in the bubble, but there was a point that resonates with your point about HR, that the US government forced you not to discriminate in lending.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
You know, that would be blame the government, not the bankers. We'll talk about the different people tomorrow. But in our US bank, which was in Boston, they were relatively upmarket, but they could not have this redlining.
You mean Freddie Mae and Fannie Mae? You mean those two? Yeah.
Iain, if I may try to answer your question, the previous question, I think the main problem between between the regulation somehow in a common sense or deregulation and in this way is taking the responsibility. The people, especially in Slovenia, are not prepared to take the responsibility because if there is a rule, the public body should buy a car by the public procurement. We are all somehow with a shield in front of us. Okay, we act as legislation asked to do. And on the other hand, if I obey this rule and there is the result could be better, so the price could be lower, but then I'm responsible if something goes wrong. And also the courts then, you know, if there is a rule, everything's okay. If there is no rule, and the people are not prepared to take the responsibility, especially the big companies.
No, it really is very important that whether it's all companies are pharmaceutical banks, they are so big. When I worked at Phillips and Drew, everyone knew who you were. So if you were good, people knew. If you were bad, people knew. In the big companies, just numbers. Nobody knows. But I think that's still a professional thing, because it would not do to go to your doctor and say, you've only got 14 spots, not 15, so we don't care. Doctors have got to make professional judgments. Bankers could, but it's a long way from that now. It's not easy. But what we're saying is that regulations are applying more and more rules. Like the economy is a big machine, if you keep on changing the capital ratios, it'll be okay. They're not assessing the behaviour at all. There's nothing in the rules of banking that would encourage good behaviour.
You're right, you're right.
Difficult to get that.
But how about one more point, actually?
Yeah.
What would you, in my opinion, for instance, it would be the banks are currently deposit holders on one hand, and loan, which means and risk issuers on another. So they are kind of taking care of they're playing a kind of a bridge between financial markets and the private individuals who want to make issue loans, and the companies that they don't go directly to the financial market and issue loans directly there, but do it by banks. So what would you say about a 100% reserves, which would prohibit banks to issue loans and only take care of
I think that's part of the whole
holding
we
deposits.
Can't go to these things. I think you already, because of the losses, the economy is doomed for years, and you cannot have such a risk-averse approach that you never have proper lending. Banks have existed for hundreds of years. Yes.
But you wouldn't have housing bubble, for instance.
Oh yeah.
Would you?
Yeah, you're right. That, as I discussed in the morning, this was a bubble. It happened to be CDOs, and it's much more serious. But it was like every bubble.
That's true. That's true.
And for us in Scotland, we had a very famous thing, the South Sea bubble. Some Scottish people went off to Panama.
This tulip bubble, you remember the tulip bubble? I read of the tulip bubble in
so all these things is just the same again. But unfortunately, it's quite a big bubble. But maybe the Eurozone bubble will be even bigger in a few years.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Any other question? If not, I would like to thank you to you, Iain, to give us a wonderful lecture. It was something new for us to hear, because it is a new spirit for Slovenia, to say so, especially because Slovenia is in a way somehow to regulate everything, and the managers should act according to the rules and not according to the more than according to their common sense. So I can agree with you that the ethics and is very important, especially in the management, because if there are too many rules, it's hard to work and to get a good result. Thank you very much, and thank you to the audience.